I feel like we recognize that the primary spiritual influence in a child's life is going to be their parents. By default, they're around them the most, and they have the most influence on them at pretty much every stage of life, even as teenagers when they don't want you to think that you have much influence over them. But also that parents need some help too. And we're happy to come alongside them in any way that we can.
Well, that's another thing that's really important with next generation ministry is, you know, you hear, and it's so cliche, well, they're the church of tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yes, but also today, like right now.
Welcome to Let's Talk About That, the podcast where we dive into conversations about life and share stories of faith. We're thrilled to be on this journey with you. Whether you're a longtime listener, someone who calls the Orchard home, or you're just stopping by, Let's Talk About That is your space to explore, reflect, and connect. Join us as we navigate the intricacies of faith, spiritual formation, and daily life as we invite guests to share their stories with us. So grab a cup of coffee, find a comfortable space, and let's do this together. This is Let's Talk About That, where you can be encouraged and inspired by God's work in our lives.
All right, we are back. Well, I'm back because I was out last week, but Mary Beth, you're here with us today. You were on last week with Matt and Dan and Hallie.
I was.
And we need to have a conversation.
Okay.
You referred to the NFL Combine as a football pageant.
I did.
Lucas, did you hear this?
I did.
Here's my issue. This is what just really got me fired up when you said that. You're not wrong.
I know I'm not.
Oh my gosh. It's like, yes, that's what
I know.
Oh my gosh. I was like, no way she just didn't. Oh my gosh, she's exactly right.
I'm right. I know.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Also, I got a text on Tuesday before I listened to the podcast. So it was early that morning. Mm-hmm. Somebody listened to it and be like, oh man, they're throwing shade at you on the podcast already this week. Talking about the NFL Combine, you know, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And they were talking about my 40-yard dash time. And I listened to the podcast, and they said I would run a 5.8. And I'm not mad at that. That's not slander.
There's an absolute guarantee that you blow a hammy.
Nah, man, I'm limber. You can't pull a fat. You can pull muscle.
I know you've seen all of those videos of the uncles racing each other. Oh, and they just eat it, and they all blow hamstrings. That would be me right now.
That's those are my favorite, the uncle races. Have you seen those?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, my favorite was there's three guys racing, and the one guy's like walking, and he just like gives a little power walk, and he wins because the other two take out in a sprint, just pull a muscle, shot by sniper, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I almost fell one time at camp racing my nephew. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I raced Isaiah.
I like it. 1
year at camp, and I almost fell because all my weight went forward.
Yeah. Fair enough. You know, I will say this. Number one, people be watching out for the reels, because I'm just saying, I can't guarantee it at this point, but I'm going to push hard for a staff combine to happen.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
I'm down.
I think that would be phenomenal. Staff combine. Number two, and here's my question for both of you. And if you haven't picked up on this, today we have Mary Beth and Lucas with us. Who do you think would run the fastest 40-yard dash on staff?
Michael, all day.
Michael. I'm gonna say no. I do have a sneaky pick, but
I don't know.
All right, so let's say we have probably the most athletic guys on staff by appearances would be Lucas, who is sitting here dying for one of us to say his name, Mary Beth, because he's not going to say his own name, and Matt.
Yeah.
But CrossFit guys don't normally do like 40-yard dashes.
We do. Do
you really?
Yeah, we have a lot of sprinting. We do everything. All of it. That's the whole point. It's all inclusive.
Yeah, but it's not a real sport. It's just being the best at exercise.
Yeah. Others would argue that, but...
Did you know Lucas did CrossFit?
I did know that Lucas did CrossFit.
Do you know everybody who does CrossFit?
Because they do. Everybody who does CrossFit.
I have almost never mentioned it to you guys.
You have not since the first year you were on staff. But you got Matt as well, who played baseball, but he was a pitcher. Mm-hmm. And I was also a pitcher. And that really means nothing about your athleticism.
Matt is sneaky fast, though. He also played outfield, so he's got some legs on him. I just played softball with him this last year. He's pretty quick.
So here's the question. Could you take Matt in a race?
I'm never going to doubt myself.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Who do you have then?
Between Matt and Lucas?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or do you got somebody else on staff that you think is going to be the fastest?
I don't know. I feel like Aaron is fast.
Oh, okay. So I was going to go with Eddie.
So Erin just got done explaining to me that she did her first CrossFit workout in a long time last week, and she's still sore. And she said she might never do CrossFit again.
Yeah. I'm not saying she wouldn't be sore, but I'm saying I feel like she's fast. She played basketball and stuff.
She did, yeah.
Yes, I'm unmoved. I don't know. I think I'm here for Eddie, though, because here's the thing about Eddie. Eddie is sneaky athletic.
Yeah.
Eddie's sneaky athletic.
Yeah.
Trey tells a story about they were at camp one year as leaders, and they were in the gym, and they were just shooting the basketball, and Trey just like started counting because he realized Eddie hadn't missed it a while, and Eddie got up to like almost a dozen without just missing jump shots.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Eddie's what we like to call in the South a poor mouther. Mm-hmm. What that means is that he's gonna talk down about, I can't do this, I can't do that, and then go kick your tail.
And proceeds to do it.
Yeah, and also Eddie's a runner.
Yeah,
he used to run a ton.
He definitely keeps himself in shape. He's had his little shoulder issues or whatever. But man, we had this staff golf competition, right? Had the mini golf, bro. He was crushing it out there.
That was great. And I'm just gonna say, I think I would surprise some people because these guys, Lucas and Matt, they're gonna pull a muscle because they have them, and I'm gonna stand by the fact I can't pull a muscle because I don't have one. I'm gonna be fine. Pickleball's kept me in cat-like reflexes.
Yeah.
Orange cat eats lasagna, but still a cat. Scarfield, for those of you who don't know. So we don't have Mary Beth and Lucas on here today to talk about how athletic our staff is, even though any church listening, we challenge you at any sport you would like. Just throwing that out there for free. Man, now I'm second guessing what churches would be listed that could beat it.
All two of you.
Dozens of listeners. But we have Mary Beth and Lucas on because Mary Beth is here in Lake City. Lucas is in Live Oak. Lucas does students in Live Oak. Mary Beth does kids in Lake City. But they also, as full-time staff members, kind of help coordinate kids ministry and student ministry as a whole for the Orchard as a multi-site church. And so I want to have a conversation today about next-gen ministry, right? Ministry for the next generation, and get Lucas and Mary Beth, get their thoughts on, what they see from their seats, what they're learning, and kind of what that ministry looks like. And I think a good place to jump in is one of my favorite, just sayings that stuck around the Orchard, because we say things and sometimes they stick. We're a Home Depot church. What we mean is you can do it, we can help, right? Mm-hmm. And we got that idea partly because they have the big orange aprons at Home Depot, and we are an orange church. We use that curriculum, but it's more than the curriculum. It's the philosophy, which ties in with the statement, you can do it, we can help. So, Mary Beth, why don't you start us off kind of unpacking what we mean when we say orange philosophy and why that phrase, you can do it, we can help, is so important to how we do next-gen ministry.
Yeah. So, orange, the color orange comes from mixing the colors red and yellow. And in this orange philosophy, red represents the heart of the home and yellow represents the light of the church. And when they come together, they make the color orange.
Yeah. So what is then the practical significance of that? How does that shape how we as a church approach ministry?
I feel like we recognize that the primary spiritual influence in a child's life is going to be their parents. By default, they're around them the most, and they have the most influence on them at pretty much every stage of life, even as teenagers when they don't want you to think that you have much influence over them. But also that parents need some help too, and we're happy to come alongside them in any way that we can, whether it be providing resources, providing, what's the word?
I heard resources.
Resources.
That's where my mind stopped, if I'm being really honest. Like, this is, what's going on.
Resources, a sounding board, advice, whatever it may be.
Encouragement.
Support. Yeah. It's like, we get it.
We're there too.
Yeah.
Lucas, anything you want to add to that? as working with the teenagers who, don't realize the role their parents play in their life.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say that it's obviously more prevalent in kids ministry because there's a lot more involvement from the parents when students get to be teenagers. Maybe not 6th, 7th, 8th grade, but especially when they start to drive, they're a lot more independent, right? Yeah. So the parents just kind of start to say like, "Hey, you go off and do your own thing. Yeah, I'm still intentional. I'm still in your life." That's not every parent, but it's definitely more prevalent in kids ministry. But for us in our student ministry, man, we're trying to do as much as we possibly can to pour into them while we get them for those 2 hours on Wednesday, right? And so we just encourage the parents to take that the next step. Small groups, which I think we're fixing to talk about, are a huge part of that.
Yeah, and we will get into that for sure because, like you say, Lucas, is that there does get to be an age where you may have students on a Wednesday night whose parents honestly could care less about their kids' spiritual development, or if they, couldn't care less, then at least they're indifferent. You know what I mean? Because the kids are driving and bringing themselves. And so in that case, it is a little bit different. Maybe they're not their kids' primary spiritual influence, but they should be. But kids' ministry is a little bit different because they don't come to church on Sundays on their own, typically. Right. But it's interesting to me because when I came to the Orchard and we started talking about the orange philosophy, the Home Depot mentality, right? Mm-hmm. That was not something that was brand new to me. I'd read a little bit about that. Eddie, as my mentor, had kind of introduced me to that and just kind of thinking through it. And it almost seems to me that our ministry is to the kids, but in a lot of ways, our ministry is to parents as well. And I'm curious, why do you feel that's so important that we as a church are able to connect with parents in a next generation ministry?
I think just letting them know the significant role that they play in the spiritual formation of their kids, that, kids' church on Sunday really is way different and shouldn't be treated the same as sending your kids to school.
Okay, hold on. Unpack that for me, because if you guys don't know this, Mary Beth, this is not her first job here at the Orchard. She was a teacher in the public school system for how many years?
10 years.
10 years.
Yep. Yeah. I taught first grade for 10 years. So I've...
Yeah. And all God's people said, woof.
Hey, 1 year makes a huge difference. I could never be a kindergarten teacher. They are...
I would never want to be a kindergarten teacher.
They are special people. Special people.
Yeah. All right. But so hold on. Before this turns back serious again, I've got to tell a story because Mary Beth was my youngest son's teacher in first grade.
Yes.
Chasen. And actually there's two stories because I just thought of one that I can't not tell. So Chasen was all about space, and he still is, right?
Yeah.
And he, was always learning these facts about space, and he was just all in on it. Went on a field trip with the daycare here at the church. They went to the Santa Fe Planetarium, and literally he tried to take over the tour because of all he knew about space. And Mary Beth, was it, I guess maybe at church one day or the ball fields or something, and she was like, "Man, what are you guys reading where he's learning all this about space?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? We're not doing anything. I thought he was learning it in school."
Yeah. I'm like, we haven't even covered space yet in first grade, and it's nowhere near what he's telling me.
Yeah. It turns out it was Alexa and YouTube that he has space. Zoom.
YouTube. Right.
Oh, it was wild. But my other one, the one I thought of, and God love him, he's 11. He's not going to be 11 forever, and things that are on the internet live forever. So one day, Chasen, when you listen to this, if you listen to this, I apologize. But Chasen is a very routine guy in a lot of ways. And you know exactly where I'm going now.
Yes.
One of his routines was my man had to use the restroom at the same time every day. And it just so happened that the time every day was math lesson.
Yes, right in the middle of math.
Just every time. And so we were talking with Mary Beth about, like, what do you think? Like, how do we do this? Do we need to teach him at home? And Mary Beth was like, nah, I just stand close to the door and talk loud. He gets it while he's in there.
He gets it. And so Chasen he's got a math mind too. So it wasn't like it was anything that he couldn't, like, just be like, oh, I know how to do that. It just, he knew how to do it.
Oh, that.
Yeah. I wasn't worried about him missing math.
I died.
He didn't miss the whole math time. It was just,
Here's the solution: flush toilet.
Jason, instead of raising your hand, flush. If you know the answer. I was dying. Anyway, so, man, that was the best rabbit trail we've had on this podcast in a long time.
So, circling back.
Yeah. So you're talking about that being involved in kids' church, bring your kids to kids' church, should not be the same as taking them to school. So double click on that.
So parents who use the public school system basically know they send their kid to school. Their kid is going to learn everything that they need to learn in kindergarten. They're going to learn everything they need to know in first grade and on throughout high school till they graduate. They're really don't, outside of helping with homework, which not all parents even help with homework, there's not much for them to do when it comes to educating their child. The school system takes care of that.
Yeah.
In contrast, the church can help educate your child and help in their spiritual formation, but you as a parent are the one who really needs to take on that role.
Yeah. And so why the difference? I mean, I guess in my head, one of the biggest reasons is the time difference. Like how long?
Oh, yeah.
How long were you with students on a day as a teacher?
6 hours minus lunch and all that stuff.
So let's just say we'll be ultra conservative. You get 4 hours a day to pour into kids, right? You don't get 4 hours a month to pour into kids at church.
No, you get 1 hour. Really less once you take away time kids are getting checked in. Hey, we like to give them hangout time, on the front end and on the back end so that they can be ready to leave when their parents get there. 45 minutes, 50 minutes of solid time if they come every week.
You said if. You said if. Are you telling me that, parents
don't? Are you just assuming that people only come once a month?
So actually, the average that we've seen at the Orchard, and this statistic kind of bears out, is the average attender only comes about 1.8 times a month. Mm-hmm. And if you are an adult, you can catch up online, you can listen to worship music on your drive to work, but we don't have online kids' church.
Right.
So they miss.
Yeah.
Lucas, what's that look like in student ministry? Because like we've said, sometimes it's not even parents dropping them off. They just let them go.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of times them not coming is their own decision and it hurts. So this past Wednesday, I had 3 guys come that have not come pretty much all semester. This whole spring semester, we've had several weeks of student ministry and it was the first time they had come. And so we get to small group, which is kind of the highlight of the night, right? Because we're unpacking what I talked about, kind of diving into what they're struggling with as much as they'll open up whatever spirit of transparency that they will have. We're unpacking that, and these guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, like I was just disappointed. Like it was like so much that I had poured into them, they had just kind of thrown out the window, and it hurt me. It is the first time that I've been a student pastor here at the Orchard where I just felt disappointed. It was like, man, yeah.
Do you think it was because they didn't understand it, they chose to abandon it, it just kind of, maybe say it like this, it just leaked out of them because they've been gone so long?
Yeah, I don't know. I think obviously, proximity is not enough. We say that all the time. We just unpacked a series in Live Oak about that. Proximity is not enough. So like even if they came, if they're not taking the time outside of that student ministry time, which, I try to be in their lives as much as possible, text them, try to hold them accountable. But at some point, they just kind of disappeared on me. And I don't know if that's just girlfriends or that you make time for what you value. And they just stopped making time for it. And I don't know, I was just a little disappointed, and to see them back was awesome. So I'm glad they're in the room. But, you know, just the content and like the things that they talked about and things like that, it's just obvious that,
well, you
invest distance.
You invest in those kids and the students, and you know, I know I'll say this, and this is ministry in general. This is next gen ministry, that sometimes it can feel like they are more important to you than you are to them, because you're just something that they do. Mm-hmm. They're an event. You facilitate something that they like. And I'll say this, and you know, I don't have any particular person in mind if any of my, you know, friends from Lafayette County are listening, but when I moved from Mayo to the Orchard, there were some people that I would catch up with. They missed me. Mm-hmm. They missed me. They missed Leanne. They missed the family. And there were some that missed what I did and how I did it. And I know that that's true in student ministry too. It's like sometimes, hey, am I any more to you than a facilitator, because you're more than that to me, right? You're somebody that I'm pouring into and investing. So that can be tough. You talked about time, Lucas, and the time matters. Mary Beth, one of the things that we talk about that Orange really puts at the forefront is investing time over time, right? So maybe unpack that for parents that are listening, why that concept of time over time is so important.
As far as at home or? Yeah,
at home and at church.
In the church, I can speak to them bringing them to church, that time over time, especially I'm seeing it in 252 Kids. I've had two of my leaders step up, shout out Haley and Grace, who have stepped up and said, you know, I want to be with these kids every Sunday, not just on a rotation. And so Grace takes the 10:30 service and Haley takes the 9 o'clock service, and seeing those relationships form, that they form with those kids, seeing both sides of it, seeing how much they care about those kids and how much those kids love seeing them, is forming a relationship of an adult in their life that they can go to if they have questions about God, about their faith, about what their next step in their faith is, and just questions about life.
Yeah, and it's not just the time over time side of that, right? Is not just hey, that's a great 50 minutes that they get to spend together. You see that for kids who come once a month. Hey, I know Miss Haley, Miss Grace, and I'm happy to see them. But the kids who it's time over time, that they're there consistently, maybe not every week. Look, I'm the lead pastor at the Orchard. I'm not in church 52 weeks out of the year. Right. You know, like none of us are going to be every week. Like we take vacations. We see family, you know, we're off the Sunday after Christmas. Yeah. But it's the time over time consistently that really multiplies that impact. So now this isn't just Miss Haley from church. This is Miss Haley. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. This isn't just Miss Grace who's in kids' church. This is Miss Grace, who is somebody I look up to, a friend, a leader.
And that directly corresponds to student ministry with their small group leader, right? Like, so for me, I could think of a dozen stories where a student was going through something and they called their small group leader first. Yeah. Like, I love that. I love hearing those stories. One in particular, a girl had a meltdown at school and just some things were going on at school. And one of the first people she called was her small group leader. And I was able to, you know, come alongside her small group leader and they worked through that. But it was just the neatest thing to see, like, hey, you know what? I value you in my life and I want to call you. And that was the product of that time over time pouring into her. She saw that person as not just a spiritual influence, but somebody that cared about her.
Yeah, man, that's so good. And that really goes to how we want our student ministry and kids ministry to maybe even look different than it does traditionally in people's minds. And what I mean by that is that whether you're in adult ministry, student ministry, or kids ministry, we do a big group setting and a small group setting, right? Now, the adults, well, that small group setting is optional because you got to join a group, you got to make time to be there. But in student ministry and kids ministry, the small group side is not optional. That's built into what we're doing that Sunday morning, that Wednesday evening. And because we put that high priority on small groups for us, we organize ministry differently. And specifically for you two, your role as ministry leader is different as well. Because, I think you think of a student pastor or a kids pastor, right, as that big personality. Let's play all the games, do all the things, DJ. Wait, hold on. Right, well, that's kind of what you think about. Yeah, but that's not what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Because what we're looking for are student leaders and kids leaders who can lead a team of small group leaders, who those small group leaders are the ones that we want our students to connect with.
Yeah.
We don't want our kids, and I can say this because I know both of you, we don't want our kids to come up and say, oh gosh, Miss Mary Beth is the most awesome all-star rock star person in the world. You'd much rather have them fall in love with Haley or Grace or any of their other leaders.
Right.
Same for you, Luke. It's like they know who you are, but you would rather them connect with Miss Stephanie and say, oh gosh, I love Miss Stephanie. She's such a big part of my life. And that is a little bit different than a lot of churches maybe approach it. So where have you seen, and you gave one example, Lucas, but where have you seen that pay off? Why do you feel that approach is so important to ministry for the next year?
So I have a story right off the bat. Bold is right around the corner. We're a couple days away. I'm excited. Shameless plug. We still got time to sign up. There's plenty of space. So if you have a student who would like to come on. We'd love to have them. But last year at Bold, man, just a lot of good stuff. I have so many stories. And I'm telling you, over the years that we have Bold, I'm going to accumulate more stories because...
time over time.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So we finished our last session on Saturday night last year, and I'm running around like crazy trying to make sure everything's cleaned up, that students are getting where they need to go. Everybody's accounted for, right? Everybody has a ride, and just I'm sweating. I'm running like crazy, and out of nowhere, around the corner walks this girl, and she's a student. She's a student that I've been praying for ever since I started student ministry here at the Orchard. And she, I know that she kind of has some things at home, that she struggles with, and I also knew that she had serious anxiety issues, depression issues. And she walks around the corner and she waited around because she wanted to find me and tell me, with Miss Stephanie walking behind her, that she had given her life to Jesus. And in those moments, I looked at Stephanie and I said, this is because of your investment right here.
Yeah.
You have poured countless hours into this girl. You have been in her life and you've been present time over time. And here we are. She made a decision to follow Jesus. And she is, man, to see the change in her from last year to this year. She's coming again this year, but it's a different person. That's awesome. Because, man, I've watched her come out of her shell, not just personality wise, but man, she is like invested. And it's just the neatest thing to see. And that is because of people like Stephanie's investment in her life. And it's just been time over time.
Yeah, that's really good because it's not babysitting. It's not, taking a turn as a facilitator. That's right. It is, we want to come alongside of parents to be a second voice, a second influence in their kid's life. And that's why those small group leaders matter, pushing them to the forefront.
I have a really cool story that I really want to share, in regards to kids ministry and that time over time in kids ministry, just on that same note. So I'm sitting here, I've got my Parent Q app open. Parents, if you don't have the Parent Q app, you'll love it and you'll hate it because the homepage right off the bat tells you how many more weeks you have with your kids until they graduate. And it literally says however many weeks until they move on to what's next. Yeah. And that doesn't sit well with me every single time I open this, and it says Liam is 593 weeks away from graduating and moving on to what's next. And I'm like, golly, that is...
Wait till they're 14, and it says your wife tells you, hey, he's only got 3 more summers till he graduates. And at that point, thank God is the wrong response, because then she gets mad at you. And I'm just kidding.
And I'll tell you, when you open this and you see this, man, you feel the weight of those 4 hours you get. Like you really feel the weight of that. And so neat story. And I'm uber proud of my son. Liam is 8 years old. He'll be 9 this summer, but he obviously is in kids ministry every single week, and he is in there for 2 services. And so he's kind of like He's like the mascot.
Shout out to church kids. Listen, shout out the church.
He's like the mascot of student ministry in Live Oak. Like, I mean, I love it. Probably a year ago, I stepped in there and I said, just make sure that he's invested in at least one service, that he's following the lesson, that he's doing what he's supposed to do, that he's not just going in the other room and drawing and hanging out and making other kids crazy or being a distraction. And so obviously they took that and they were like, hey, we want to make sure that he's doing what he's supposed to do. Respect you as his father. The last 2 weeks, he's been helping lead worship in kids ministry.
I love that.
He got up there and he sang last week.
I love
and
that.
I was like, man, this is stinking cool. He was telling my dad last night at family dinner, I got to lead worship this morning with Miss Cindy. Rachel's going to start. He's doing piano with Rachel, my wife, and she's going to start teaching him the songs that they're doing. So he's going to start playing piano for kids ministry.
So cool.
And I'm like, this is my 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Who has to be in church every service two times, in kids ministry. And here he is, like, man, just that little investment in him,
that's really cool.
And doing big things, that's just really cool.
Well, that's another thing that's really important with next generation ministry is, you hear, and it's so cliche, well, they're the church of tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yes, but also today, like right now.
Oh, for sure.
And I'll say that one of the things that's been cool for me really recently is seeing Haddon, my 14-year-old, get plugged in to serving with a media team on Wednesdays and like on Sunday morning.
I saw him last time I was here 2 weeks ago. He ran sound in the second service. That's cool.
Way to shout him out. Lucas was like, can we get this echo turned down? And I know that it's Haddon's first Sunday on the soundboard. And I'm like, he doesn't know how to do that. What are we doing?
Well, every time I'm speaking,
we handled it.
Every time I'm speaking on the stage and the echo is on from us singing, I feel like that scene in The Grinch where he shouts out, "I'm an idiot. You're an idiot."
Yeah, that was good. Because I think that, seeing how to get up there and do that is a reminder that our young people are very capable of serving and helping now. Again, Grace is, out of school, young adult. Haley's a senior.
Yeah.
Right. She's a senior. Yeah. And it was a few weeks ago, Mary Beth, you had some even younger students that I think came back and helped in kids' church.
Yes, the middle school kids who have been, they've been helping on and off this school year, and they're great. I have like a little group of moms who all the little girls are friends together. And so I'll just send out, if I'm needing an extra hand in one of the classes because somebody's out, I'll be like, hey, can any of the girls come this week? And they're great.
Yeah.
Always, unless they're out of town, they always pick it up. Well, several weeks ago when the whole world was sick, it felt like.
Oh my gosh. No, you're not wrong.
The whole entire world was sick, and within a span of about 24 to 36 hours, I received text messages from 11 or 12 of my scheduled volunteers.
Yikes.
Out of 15 or 16.
This is my new year.
Who were, and like legitimately, either they themselves were sick with the flu or flu-like.
No, it went around there for a minute.
Yeah.
Leanne had one Friday in her class where she had like 11 of her 15 students.
Yeah, here's the end of the school year before Christmas. Man, it ran ripped.
Yeah, we were later than Live Oak because Live Oak got hit, and it was like, I feel like it was like after the first year that it ran through.
It was, and it was awful. And I sent out like a Hail Mary text message like, can you guys please come and be extra hands in these classes so that we don't have to combine any or split any up, or or worst case scenario, shut a whole classroom down just because we don't have the people. And they stepped up. I had a handful of middle school and high school kids who showed up, and we didn't have to close any classrooms. We didn't have to combine any classrooms because they showed up.
And see, that's amazing. That's what I love, because you're not asking them to come in there and be experts, and we're not saying, hey, be a Bible scholar, 7th grader,
Yeah. We're
saying, come be a warm, friendly face for these kids, point them further down the road than they are, and, be that second voice, because that second voice doesn't have to be the same age as your parents.
Right.
It can be younger. It can be older.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this because I don't think he would mind. I think that, I've heard him say this publicly before. But Eddie is always a little bit nervous about his age, especially with student ministry and young people. And I get it, right? Because a lot of the kids that are in student ministry are the age of his grandchildren, and he's like, I want to make sure they have somebody they can relate to. And I get that. And his heart is definitely in the right place with that. But the conversation I've had with him is, Eddie, they can relate to you as long as they know you don't think you're 25.
Yeah.
Like if you show up with a backwards baseball cap and skinny jeans saying, sup, dog, like at that point, they're gonna be like, ugh, what's this?
Yeah.
But if you show up and talk to them like you would talk to your grandkids, that's somebody they may not have in their life. They may not have that figure in their life, and they are craving it. Now you're getting to step in that. And that's not just an Eddie thing. That's a volunteers from all ages. You don't age out of kids ministry, age out of student ministry, because I think so often parents feel like, okay, when my kid's that age, I need to serve there. No, that's not how that works. You can fill that role no matter your age. You can be the big brother that they haven't had. You can be the grandmother that they don't get to see because she lives across the country. And it's pretty incredible to see those dynamics form, whether it's a middle schooler or somebody as old as their grandparents.
Yeah. If he feels old up there, wow. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel old up there, and I'm 33. So,
well, I am old up there. Lucas, I'll tell you this, the first day that I stepped into student ministry after AJ was gone, I said, hey, if you are 6th through 12th grade, do me a favor, raise your hand. And they all put their hands in the air. And I said, okay, great. Well, how about you out like it and throw away your trash because I'm not your mama. Yes. Got him. But, I think that, my old man side shows in student ministry. But again, the kids know I'm 40, not 20. I'm well aware. I'm well aware, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine having the dad jokes and having to ask them, what the heck does that mean? Because I don't know what that means. I need you to double click.
Lining the boys up in your cabin and asking them if they've showered. That type of dad. Matter of fact, what I told him, Lucas is referring to the first year I was staying in the cabin with the middle school boys at Bold. And I said, hey, I know that it says in the room at 11, lights out at 12. You're going to be in the room at 10 so that you can all have your shower by 11 because my lights are going out at 11 because I'm going to be ready for bed and y'all need to be too. Got to let them know what's up. I think that those relationships, again, whether with middle schoolers, high schoolers, grandparents' age, it's that small group. I'm not here for all the kids or all the students. I'm here for this group of kids or this group of students. I'm making a connection with them. It's so huge because one of the things that we've said from the stage in our messages before, one of the things that we've all heard, guys at a conference is that a church that reaches the next generation does not have to be cool, but it needs to be warm, right? And I think that the perception that some people from more traditional church background get of the Orchard is, oh, they just the cool church, and they say that with like disdain in their voice. Oh, they're the cool church. They wear jeans and they have drums and they're serving coffee and donuts. Okay, number one, yes to all those things. Number two, I hope you realize nothing you just mentioned makes us cool, right? Like legitimately in my office right now, I'm staring at a bat signal that I have on my bookshelf, and I'm the lead pastor at the Orchard. We are not the cool church. However, we don't care about being a cool church.
Right.
We do want to be a warm church where students can come in, safe environment.
Yeah, I try my absolute hardest on Wednesday nights to make sure every student feels seen.
Yeah.
Like they know, like, hey, I'm apprehensive. This might be my first time, but hey, I'm going to greet them. I'm going to talk to their parents. Like, I'm going to try to connect them with another group of students just so that every student has that moment in their life where like, man, do I really belong? Do I really fit in here? And I want to make sure, like, especially at Bold coming up, like, I want to make sure every student knows, like, hey, it's a safe environment, but like, we're happy that you're here and we want to be intentional about that.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite stories that we heard at that Next Generation Ministry Conference was from a lady whose name was Kara Powell, and she works for the Fuller Research Institute and did a lot of research on churches that are effective at reaching the next generation. And she made that statement about they have to be a warm church. She says it like this: warm is the new cool. The best magnet, she says, for warm people or for young people is a warm relationship. And she tells a story about a church that they were visiting in Pennsylvania when they were doing this research. And it was a church that was just exceptional at reaching young people. And so before they actually went on the ground, they conducted a lot of interviews over the phone, via paper, asking young people there essentially what makes this church so attractive to you. And they kept hearing over and over and over and over how much the young people at this church loved Bill, right? And Bill was so friendly, and Bill shows up at their games, and Bill takes them coffee at their jobs because, hey, some of these high schoolers have jobs, right? And that Bill was their favorite thing about their church. And so they're thinking, wow, we got to meet Bill. This has got to be like the most all-star, rock star, youth pastor, student pastor out there. He must be electric, charismatic. What a great speaker. Well, when they showed up at the church, Bill was a 70-year-old volunteer. And he literally held the door open at student ministries. And when he saw that there was a young person in that church who didn't have people showing up for their sports activities, he showed up. When he saw that nobody would ask them for coffee or breakfast, he would do that. And he made it his vow that there would not be a young person that attended that church that didn't have someone, because he would be that someone. And then Bill began recruiting other adults, other senior adults to do this. And they said it just became a thing where he would show up at church on Sunday mornings with a schedule to, let's say, volleyball season, and passes it out to the senior adults and be like, all right, who's going to this game? Who's going to this game?
That's really cool.
Just so that they knew that this church is for you. That's nothing about being cool. That's about being warm. And that's why those small group relationships are so important. Who cares about the big, crazy personality, let's be so awesome, silly student ministry, or, look at me, I'm basically Blues Clues in kids' church, No, just a warm volunteer that you can connect with and that parents can trust, love their kid, and want for their kid what they want for their kid.
Right.
I think that's so important. Any other thoughts about small group and that relationship and why that's at the heart of how we do Next Generation Ministry?
Yeah, I try to encourage my small group leaders. So this is just a note for small group leaders. If you are actively leading small group on Wednesday nights for student ministry, I encourage you to take that a step farther and try to be in the student's life outside of that setting. What I say by that is, man, get a group text going, or find out about that schedule, that game schedule, or whatever it might be. Figure out what their interests are and try to connect with them on that level, and be a little more intentional outside of that setting. I mean, obviously, small group on Wednesday nights, we usually have 30 to 40 minutes to do small group, which I think is great. And sometimes we even go past that. But that is important. That's great. Try to do more. Try to be more intentional. Again, we only get that 1 hour with them, right, on Wednesday night. So try to do something else. I went to a basketball game last Thursday. I don't typically have a lot of extra time to do this stuff, so I'm glad that I have small group leaders that can. But I went to a basketball game last Thursday for one of my students, and it meant the world. When I walked in, it was honestly the first game that I had been to. He looked at me and he was like, whoa, like, this is serious. And he played his butt off out there on that court.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think, like Lucas says, if you're leading a small group, I would even go so far as to say, if you call the Orchard home.
Oh, yeah.
If you're not volunteering in student ministry or kids ministry, that doesn't mean you can't do this.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't do this. Be someone for those people who don't have anyone, whether that be a student, a kid, an adult, seek to be that person for them. And, you don't have to have kids in middle school or high school to serve in student ministry.
Right.
You don't have to have kids in kids' church to serve in kids' church. You can be younger, you can be older. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. You just have to be available. One of the things that you hear football coaches say all the time, because it's a sport where people get banged up a lot, right? They say the greatest ability is availability. Doesn't matter how talented you are if you're never healthy enough to be on the field, Mm-hmm. And so I think the same thing is in church and next gen ministry. The greatest ability is availability. You don't have to be a Bible scholar. You don't have to be the coolest person around. You just got to be available to invest in kids.
Yep.
And, that's one of the things that we've tossed around. I think that is a hard thing for us as a church to juggle. And that is what we ask of our volunteers who serve, specifically in kids ministry, mm-hmm. because we know that we believe it best for there to be that person who can invest time over time.
Yeah.
Like a Miss Haley, like a Miss Grace, like a Miss Stephanie, which, by the way, as I'm saying all this, we have some awesome guys that serve in our next gen ministry as well. But they're there every week to pour into those kids. A lot of our leaders, specifically in kids ministry, can only commit to every week. But to me, when I think back of those, leaders in church that make such a big investment, even in other churches, they're those Sunday school teachers who don't serve the first week of every month. They're those Sunday school teachers who, that's Miss Gladys's Sunday school class, and she's been teaching it. You know what I mean? That's that time over time. And man, all you have to be is available to invest time over time in a kid's or student's life, and you can make such an impact. So somebody's listening to this, one of our dozens of listeners. Somebody's listening to this. How do they get plugged in to Next Gen Ministry?
I mean, they just make that connection, right? Talk to us, fill out a Connect card, whatever it looks like. We make that phone call. I'll say shameless plug for student ministry. I have a great group of small group leaders. I love them to death. I seriously can't say enough good things about the folks that serve with me on Wednesday night. I have about 12 or 13 who are so consistent, and I just love them to death. But that doesn't mean that I don't want more.
Yeah.
So I obviously have my key
folks. You could just feel that there was a but coming there, and I was going like, but they're terrible, and I'm firing them all. No, it's just saying, but we need more. Okay, no, that's good.
So I tell the folks this. Obviously, I have my key folks who kind of lead small group. They've stepped into that role. They do so great. Sometimes they lean on others who are in the room to kind of help them lead that. I love that. I have some younger small group leaders who just graduated last year that Miss Dawn in our middle school small group is kind of leaning on them to let them lead, and I love that. She's giving them their reps like we learned at Orange last year. Man, she's letting them have their reps, and so it's cool. But I also have some folks that come that don't really lead. They're just in the room. Like you talked about availability.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about availability. Man, some of my students, they're the only Christian in their home. It's crazy. They drive themselves. They drive themselves to
that's good
to student ministry, and so as many people as possible that I can get there who are good, solid people who want to just pour into students, like that is so important because man, just sitting in the room, they're seeing there's adults in there that actually genuinely care about them and genuinely care about investing time in them. So they go home, and they might have a dad who laughs at them because they believe in Jesus, and so they're the only Christian in the home.
Yeah.
So getting as many folks there, even if they don't have a specific role, like, oh, hey, you're supposed to help with snacks this week, you're supposed to lead small group this week. No, just be in the room, talk to them, right? Invest time in them, ask them how their day went, because somebody at home might have not asked that yet, right? Ask them, man, like, hey, what do you think about this that was said tonight? Even if it's just a side conversation that's not a small group conversation, it's like, man, that is just so important. And so like, hey, if you want to get involved, that's a huge way that you can get involved. It's just being there.
Yeah. About kids ministry.
We can always use extra volunteers in kids ministry.
I'm going to say this about kids ministry too, because it's not as true in student ministry, but in kids ministry, it almost feels like that's where the ladies serve.
Yes.
That gripes me to no end.
It grinds my gears.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Because it's like, man, we need some strong, godly men to be an example for our kids. And look, I'm going to be the first one to say, unless God calls me, I'm not signing up to serve in the nursery because I don't like changing my kids' diapers. You know what I mean?
Right.
But we're not talking just nursery. We're talking fifth graders, third graders, first graders.
Yes.
And look, they have questions and they need somebody to engage with. And honestly, they need somebody to say, hey, that's not how we act in church.
Yeah.
You know, and guys, let's step up. We don't just need dads at home. We need dads in kids' church.
Yes.
You know?
I have, he actually served when he was a little younger in middle school. He started serving in the First Look class, but Jackson Skinner. And and he got older. He's in high school now. And one day I actually was talking to Haley about it, about how I really wanted to get some guy leaders in 252 Kids. And she was like, what about Jackson? And I was like, you know what? I was like, those boys would eat him up in a good way. Not like eat him alive, but like they would
eat him up and eat him alive.
Yeah,
Two distinctly
totally
different meanings.
Yes, they would love to have him up in 252 Kids.
Yeah.
You know, and they do. He's done 1 month in there so far. And those boys, we are boy heavy in the 1030 class.
Yeah, you are.
And they love him being in there. Yeah. And he's not the main leader in that class. He's there as help, to be a small group leader, to hang out with the boys, to
a connecting point for those boys. Like, look, if you have that hero complex in your life where you need to be the hero, you need to be a superhero, show up in kids' church, because you will be wearing a cape in those boys' eyes for sure.
Shout out to Cindy in Live Oak. She has started recruiting storytellers, right? So every 252, they have a story that they tell. It's a Bible story. And so she started recruiting men to come in and tell that story. And so I could think of 4 or 5 guys right now that go in there. And so, one, it's very rewarding for you. Yeah. But also, two, man, if you want to see your kids light up, dude, and think that you're an absolute celebrity, walk in that room and they say, oh, that's my dad.
Absolutely. Kara down in Branford has several dads who help in 252. That's and awesome. They are the rock stars.
Yeah.
Those are the dudes.
The kids love them.
Yeah. So guys, step up to the plate with kids ministry. And even this, like Mary Beth said, even if you aren't ready to be that storyteller that Cindy's recruiting, number one, just help. Like Lucas has already said, being available is big. And I'll throw this out there, just what if you were the guy who opened the door on Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights, and you learned the kid's name and you gave them a high five when they walked by? You know what I mean? Like,
be like Bill.
Yeah. Be Bill. Be a Bill.
Does Bill do speaking events? Can we bring him here?
I've never even seen a picture of Bill.
Yeah.
But exactly. You just need people like that. So, really quick, because we are running out of time, one other part of Next Gen Ministry that is a big part of Next Gen Ministry, even though it doesn't take up a lot of time, is every year we load up a bus and we go to kids camp and we go to student camp. And so that is coming up in the next little bit. And we have, as of the time of recording, a waiting list / maybe a couple of available spots for those camps. But point being, as of the time of this recording, it is not an impossibility for you to still get a student or kid to camp this summer. So to do this, give me a 90-second, 2-minute each of you. Why is camp still important?
You want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been to several camps with students. Impuge, Centrifuge, all different kinds of stuff like that. But we go to Crossroads Summer Camp every year. And I'm telling you right now, as far as spiritual content and the intentional spirituality of this camp, it's the best one I've ever seen. Man, every year we have students get saved. Every year we have students make large commitments to get deeper in their faith or step out of something and step into something that is, Jesus-led. And so my plug would be, there is something special about intentionally taking a week to get away from your life, right? Whatever's going on, your little bubble, your little slice of life at home, and go and fully focus on Jesus for a week. Man, God works in those moments. And I have countless stories that I could tell about the last 2 years of Crossroads.
Yeah, one of the things that it's not original with me at all, but we've repeated it around the orchard now, is, a change of place and a change of pace gives you a change of perspective, and that's what you're describing there. So that's good. Mary Beth, what about kids camp? Why is kids camp still important?
Exactly what you just said. It gets kids out of their normal environment, their normal routine. They're not with mama and daddy. They are...
Unless you're chasing.
Yeah, or Emery.
Dads, well, fair enough.
Or Emery.
Or Liam.
Yeah.
This year.
But it gets them away, and it gets them... Kids Camp is really fun.
Gosh, I love Kids Camp.
Kids Camp is really, really fun for those kids. Probably more on the fun side than like Crossroads. It's not quite as serious.
Crossroads is still very fun.
It's very fun. It never
Whatever. Crossroads ain't got nothing on Kids Camp.
It never gets quite as serious, I'm sure, as Crossroads does. And that's just, based on age level of the kids going. But even if these kids don't come out of the week of camp, making a decision to follow Jesus, seeds are being planted the entire week. Everything is centered around that. We have large group worship. They break up into Bible study groups. Even their fun times, what do they call them? Tracks, where they get to go do something fun that they pick out. They round that out even with sharing the gospel with the kids.
Yeah.
And it's just a full week of everything they're doing pointing them to Jesus.
Yeah, that's good. And, just honestly, very practically, one of the things I love about Kids Camp is getting to see kids grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
Have a little bit of independence and what they do with it.
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes it's a little sideways.
Yeah.
And sometimes, they don't.
Yeah.
They grow up and they're like, okay, this kid gets it.
Yeah.
That's fun to see.
Yeah.
I mean, 100% the spiritual side. But even as a dad, as a coach at heart, I love seeing where that light bulb clicks and they're like, you know what? I ought to take a shower today.
Yeah. Yeah. And just something I love about it too is the relationships that we get to deepen with the kids who go, because we typically, especially for Kids Camp, we typically know all of these kids, who go. Occasionally it'll be like, oh, I'm bringing my friend with me. So we may not know that kid very well. But by the end of the week, we've gotten to know them pretty well. And they've also gotten to know us a lot better too than maybe they did before they went.
Yeah. And that, just fully transparent, is the reason that I've committed, as long as I'm the lead pastor and am able, I'm going to Kids Camp to spend a week with our kids.
Yeah.
Because I want to know them early. I want them to know me early. And as they grow up in the church, I want them to be able to have a relationship with me. And I love, developing that with those kids, because it does bear fruit. For years, to come, from secret high fives with the kids to, passing a sixth grade girl at student ministry and being like, hey, no purple.
Yeah.
Or how are we doing on no purple? So it's really, really good. And, Mary Beth will tell you, like, again, fully transparent, I may gripe about the camp preacher sometimes if I feel like he didn't do a great enough job. Hey, these are my kids. I want you to do a good job with my kids,
right.
But at the end of the day, I'm there for the relationship.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's the theme of this whole podcast, right? Is Next Gen Ministry is all about relationships. And at the Orchard, we want to be a church that prioritizes those and that really lean into that in a way that is time over time, not to take the place of the parent, but to support the parent, to come alongside the parent, to be that second voice, because we're a Home Depot church. You can do it. We can help. So if you have any questions about Next Gen Ministry, how you can get involved or plugged in, reach out to us. If you say, hey, man, I'm just really struggling as a parent with my child, walking through this, answering this, reach out to us. We're here to help. Not that we're experts, but at the very least, we can help you with some resources that can point you in the right direction, because we really do want to be a church that's here for you and helping your formation as you help lead in your kids' formation. So any last words from Mary Beth, Lucas? You guys got anything?
Yeah. Sign up for Bold. Sign up for Crossroads.
Well, I mean, since, this is going to stay on the internet forever, if you're listening to this the date it drops, you have 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
For Bold. For camp, you've got
a little more time.
A little more time.
But for Bold.
Yeah.
Because
If
we're
you're
recording
listening to this and you haven't paid your second deposit, pay your second deposit.
Yes,
we're
for
recording
camp.
this on March 10th. All right. I like it because you know what? To quote the Backyardigans, we're in the thick of it. We're in the thick of it right now. camp, Bulge. It's happening. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys dropping by, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk About That. We hope it encouraged and challenged you as we continue to grow on this journey of faith and embrace community together. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us through our social media channels or visit our website to stay connected. Your support is what makes this podcast impactful. If you found today's discussion meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the episode with a friend, and leave a review. Your engagement helps us spread the message and connect with others who can be encouraged through these conversations. Until next time, we hope this episode inspired you to live out your faith this week. Keep the conversations alive, and remember, we're all on this journey together.